Dear audience, in this short video we would be discussing the classicism. Actually, this romanticism and classicism are regarded as the contradiction of the one another, and usually it confuses to the students that what does the classicism mean. Before going to the definition and its historical construction, we just keep in mind that the major function of the art is to communicate a meaning to the audience. So the initial function of the art is the communication. So there are some ethics and forms of some essential elements of that communication as well. For example, if someone is going to convey a message to some audience, then that definitely that message should be in clear sound. It should be in well organized medium as well. If it is the spoken, then the medium of transmission of communication should be appropriate one, and if it is in the written form, then the medium of communication that should also be appropriate. So as we had understanding in our mind that the art is basically the style of saying something. Similarly, classicism majorly focus on the precision and accuracy of the communication of that message that is conveyed through the art. So classicism, both as art style and as the theory of art, was defined by the ancient Greeks. It's said that nothing is new after Greeks. So initially it were the Greeks who focused on the message of art and the communication of the message of the art on the audience. So then later on it was emulated by the Romans and then continued to appear in various forms across the centuries. Historically, if we see it, it started in the 4th BC centuries in the Greece, and the writers such as Aristotle and Sophocles, they have been the main propagandist and the theory found fathers, and they have been talking about this. Their name is basically associated with the classicism. And later on in Rome, the writers such as Cicero and the Virgil, they have been associated with the classicism. The very basic and simple definition of is that the message or the communication performed through art to the audience in the best manner is called classic mode of communication. And this classicism as a movement talks about those elements of communication which creates an order in that communication, which creates some sort of logic in that order, in that communication, and which establish a close contact between the audience and the sender of the message or the piece of the art. And later in the France, we see that the period of enlightenment and of which Voltaire and Condorcet have been talking about, it has been talked in France as well. So classicism is not only a Greece phenomena, it has come out from the Greece and then later on propagated by the Romans, and later on then even by the English writers. Even in the France, this movement has been taught. So in its varying formulations, classicism affirms the superiority of balance and rationality over impulse and emotions. Definitely the sense of impulse and emotions is more confusing. Impulse and emotions are more rather than at random, while the balance and rationality, they are more preferred and stable sense of behaviors. So classicism talks and affirms that balance and rationality is more preferable rather than the impulse and emotions. While if we talk about the romanticism, they majorly focus on the impulse and emotions. They they give more value to impulse and emotions. Even the poetry in the later sense, in the later and the 21st century or in the 20th century, they have been more eulogizing, they have been more preferring the theory of impulse and emotions. Means even the Wordsworth, not in clear sense, but somehow talks that what comes, the poetry that comes through the impulse are your emotions. That's the best poetry. While classics considers that the poetry which gives talks of the best balance and rationality, that is the best poetry. So, classicism aspires formal precisions, means there should not be an additional word. So, any piece of poetry or the piece of art that should be formally precise. For example, if we talk about that Rape of the Lock, Alexander Pope's, it said that there is not even a single line which is additional, even not a single paragraph and comma is there, which should be the additional one. So classicism talks of the formal precision, and it affirms and talks of the best order in the writing. And it eschews means definitely it negates, it detests ambiguity, flights of imagination, and the lacks of resolutions. If we talk in detail, more with the reference to the modern poetry, with reference to modern art and fiction. So modern poetry are the symbolist poetry, are poetry later than the romantics. They have been talking of ambiguity, flights of imagination, and they does not hold any straight single resolution. While classics talks of precisions and order, rationality, and balance between the what they are saying and what they are meaning. Classicism asserts the importance of the wholeness and the unity. Means if you are going to present something as a form of art, if you are going to display something as a form of art to the public, then it should be whole, it should be complete in its meaning, it should be having a unity. The work of art coheres without extraneous elements or open-ended conclusions. Means it should not be open. However, we to some extent believe that there cannot be an close-ended intended conclusion or by the author. However, to some extent, it is by the classics definition, it is the duty of the artist to locate or to some extent to bring the audience and the readers on some particular meaning. For example, if it is up to 80%, if it is up to 75%, so 75 to 85%, it's the duty of the author, it is the duty of the writer to maintain the original meaning to the readers. While later on short story writer or the multifarious modern critic writers have been focusing that it's up to only after the theory of the death of the author, they have been talking that it is only up to the wish and will of the readers that what sort of meaning he perceives. Interestingly, I would be contending classics are of the view that meanings are free but not so much free, and they are not absolutely free. So there should be some order, there should be some formal precision, there should be some unity, there should be some coherence between the piece of the art and its elements which are going to communicate a particular meaning. Both ancient Greeks and the Roman writers stressed and restricted the scope. They focus that reason reflected in the theme and the structure, it is the very necessary. Means these are the parameters which makes the text as classic. If that is more focused on the theme and the structure, and if the unity and the purpose of the design is the focused one in the piece of art, then it would be the classic. Similarly, Aristotle in his Poetics has stressed that the unities of time, place, and action. When we look at the criticism, then Aristotle has been focusing on these unities. These unities of time, place, and actions confirms that he was classic in his understanding, and similarly he was looking for such classicism in the piece of literature, in the works of literature at that time. Perhaps basing his theory of the drama on the Sophocles, as at that time Aristotle was focusing, and all his examples that he has proposed in his that Poetics are from the Sophocles play. Some are from the Oedipus Rex. So his major theory understanding was based on the Sophocles plays. He asserts that the action of the play must occur within the 24 hours. So this refers to the restrictiveness of the time, or the unity of the time, and with all events taking place in one location. And majorly he was also this refers to the unity of the location as well. And each event causing the next event means the events should be the linked with one another, and following these restrictions would produce a good classic and cohesive drama. Means if the Aristotle was of the view, if unity of the time is observed, if the unity of place is observed, if the unity of events has been observed, then it would be cohesively, pleasingly drama. And that definitely that would be classic in its sense. If it is going to observe the unities, and if it is not going to observe the unities, then it would be a romantic or some modern piece of literature as well. In all the ancient beliefs that art, that's the more important, that art was a vehicle for communicating the reason and intelligence that permeate the world and human affairs when the people act rationally and according to the moral percept. That's the basically function of art, that is perceived by the classics, that art has to talk the reason and intelligence, as art is considered as a higher order of communication. Art is considered as a superior affair of humans. Art is considered as the moral artifact of the human understanding as well. Therefore, this classics are of the view that art should be the best order. For example, if Matthew Arnold defines the poetry as the best words in the best order, similarly classics considers that art should be in its best order, in its best rationale, in its best unities. If it is not, then it is not a classic art. So classicism in the 20th century can be seen in the T.S. Eliot's literary theory and critical theory of T.S. Eliot as well, in which he has been referring to the mythology, and in his Modernism Becomes Electra, he has been talking about Eugenides' play and Ortysius Aeschylus. So by this definition, we come to the conclusion that classics is not only associated with Romans and the Greeks, but it has been practiced in France and in England as well, and in many other fictions as well. But it has never, to some extent, it has been up to before to the birth of the theories of post-structuralism. As post-structuralism, structuralism, and deconstruction, they have been talking of multiple meanings. They have been talking of the open-ended conclusions. Even, for example, if we talk about the short story as a genre, they have been talking about the open-ended conclusions. So classicism has been practiced up to the T.S. Eliot. T.S. Eliot is considered to some extent as the classic critic as well, and classic artist as well, while Wordsworth, they have Keats, Coleridge, they have been talking about the imagination. Therefore, they are the anti proponents, are the anti followers of the classicism. They are lies in the line or the tent of the romantics. So classicism is so how we would be defining how we would be reaching to a conclusion that which text is the classic. Even classicism may happen in the 21st century if the text is more coherent, if the text is observing the unities, if the text is more with the focused conclusions, then it would be the classic one. Otherwise, if it is more imaginative, it is open-ended meanings, and it is not observing the unities, then definitely it would be a modern text. It would not be the classic text. With these conclusions, I bid goodbye. Thank you very much.